So, in the afternoon, when we were going from here after the before the lunch session, so people were absolutely sure that there is going to be a dhuni. So I cracked a joke. Nobody took me seriously. I don't know who all heard it. You heard? I said many years ago I landed in New York and there was a cab driver, nice friendly guy. We got into the cab. For some reason, he kept calling me Doc. I don't know why. So, huh? D, Doc. So, so we got in, and he was driving, and it was raining heavily, and he started laughing loudly. I said that. I think some people didn't hear. It was raining heavily, and he said, "I said, were you laughing? What's so funny?" He said, "No, there was a weather broadcast in the morning. It says going to be a pretty sunny day today. This is why I'm." So that's what happened. So today the weather forecast has gone upside down, hmm, which is good. We will meditate here after that. Okay, now I'm going to tell you a story which has some impact or some connection. Two stories which has some connection to what we discussed previously. Uh, Starts with the story of the professor who went to uh, Lahari Mahashai and wanted to have more and more Kriya. What is the next technique and so on. He couldn't understand because he was already full of stuff which he had learned and gathered over the years. So it was not clear enough for him to move forward. Mhm. In the same way, what we require before we start practice is to clear our minds and make them really um, not caught up in too many images and what we have learned and all that. So I'm going to look at one verse in the Upanishad to kind of demonstrate why too much of this so called studied knowledge, which we gather from books and so on, may actually be a hindrance to opening the mind than be a help. I'm not saying it's wrong or right, it could be. Like some of the. Do you know that there was a great mathematician from the south of India called Ramanujam? He didn't study anything from any college or school, but when he came, I think, to the United States and wrote a thesis, they were wonderstruck. What is this now? The equation. Einstein, in some way. I'm not saying we are all Einsteins, please. Different category, but we are not all Ramanujams. But I want you to want you to listen to something which is in an Upanishad in connection with this, so that you have an idea why it is said so. Um, the Upanishad I'm talking about, I wanted to do it, but we don't have time. Tomorrow we start the Kriya, but I'm picking up one sloka from that. The sloka starts with Andham tava pravishanti yo avidyayam upasate. This is how it starts. Which means he who, this is from one of the principal Upanishad called the Ishavasya Upanishad, a short Upanishad, not as short as the other one we dealt with in the morning. And afterwards, it comes to a statement that he who worships ignorance enters into darkness. Well, when you hear that statement, we're quite happy. It seems quite logical. Yeah, because I have knowledge, so I'm not ignorant, so therefore I'm not entering into darkness. Right? I think so. The statement is that those who worship, when you say worship, it means who adore ignorance or who are happy with ignorance, who enter into great darkness. This is the statement. But the next sentence, they enter into greater darkness who worship knowledge. Now, this is something contradictory. First one I can understand because I also like to associate myself and say, no, 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 I'm not ignorant, so I will not enter into darkness. But the next sentence it's like a bombshell. It says, and those who worship knowledge enter into greater darkness. No, this cannot be. Logically, it cannot be. So why have they said this? Several commentaries have been written on this by different acharyas. So what I have understood from all that, I'm going to tell you. The thing is, first you need to define vidya and avidya, which means knowledge and ignorance. Vidya is the word used for knowledge. We have to look at the word knowledge. What do we mean when we say we have knowledge about something? Anything. Physics or beef or mutton or whatever which you put on the fire. What do we mean when we say I have a knowledge of something or a scripture? Okay, let's take a simple object. Suppose I didn't know anything about this watch till Abhijit's son gifted it to me on my birthday. I didn't know anything about this watch. Then I got the watch in my hand. I said, I don't know about it, so let me understand it. Okay? Till now everything is clear. Now what do? I study it carefully. How does it look? What is the shape? What is the color? What is the strap? How does it work? If I am mechanical minded, how does it work? And so on. And then I say, now, I know about this watch. I have the knowledge of this watch. Right? It's a normal process. Then I say, okay, I know this watch. I have knowledge of this watch. Before that, I didn't know. So when I say I have knowledge of this watch, it simply means that I have understood certain things. Understanding is required. And then I have absorbed it in my memory and stored it somewhere in my memory backup in my brain. We don't know where it exactly is, but somewhere a backup. I have stored it. And when I say I know about this particular watch, when somebody says Mont Blanc, I know what it is, which means I'm drawing that memory about this watch, which I had studied and stored, and I can draw it out at any given time easily. This is what I mean by saying I know this watch. All processes like that, all knowledge is part of that, including scriptural knowledge, everything. Which means first I didn't know, then I understood. Having understood it, I got it into my memory and I can pull it out and look at any time I want. Then that means I know about the watch. Right? So it's every knowledge, therefore, is a memory. And memory is not anything to do with the present. Do you know of any present memory? All memories of the past can't be present. Then you won't call it memory then. It's all in the past. This is the normal process of knowledge. Right. Now the Upanishad says that truth or the Ishavasya, the supreme all-pervading thing that you're looking for, which you will find probably at the end, is a thing which is constantly in the present. It cannot be memorized and put in the past and then brought back and looked at. It's a constant flow of the present. So, therefore, if I say I know about it, I enter into greater darkness. Because then I have put it in my little cubby hole and defined it and said that I know about it. While the truth is always present, you cannot memorize it or put it back in your memory, draw it out. No, it's always there. It's like the constant flow of water in a river, not a stagnant pond. So, therefore, what we are, otherwise, you get stuck in the same groove of any other knowledge that you have. Which is why the Upanishad says that one enters greater darkness when you worship knowledge, because all knowledge is a memory, and what we are looking for is something that is in the present and not in the past to be pulled out, examined, and put back. It's always there, constantly there, present. So I'm connecting it to the professor who came to Lahari Mahashai. He was worshipping knowledge because he knew all about it. I know all about this. Maybe he would have given a lecture or two to Lahari Mahashai on Kriya Yoga, quite possible. Hmm? So that's one story. The other is not story, I mean, from the Upanishad. Should read the Ishavasya Upanishad. There's another point in that Upanishad which is to be noted. It says that essence of consciousness pervades everything here. Ishavasya idam sarvam etkincha jagatyam. Anyway, doesn't will not go there. It pervades everywhere. Now, if what I seek is here, and I am here, suppose what I seek is there, let's say I have kind of located, it's there, and I need to seek it, then I have to move, or my mind has to move from here to there, right? It is there, and I have to see it, seek it, find it, so I have to move. It's a linear process. What happens when what I seek is here, there, and everywhere? What happens? Where do I move? So, the Upanishad, the same Upanishad, in what place describes it as tad dure tad vadantike, it's far and yet it is near. Which means it is all pervading, and therefore there is, I can't say it is there, I have to go there. Perhaps when all going ends, all movement of reaching out or pulling back, everything ends and the mind is still, then it discovers it is right here. Where am I looking for it? These are two things we need to understand. Because finally we are trying to understand something which is not a memory, which is always present, and which is not far away that you try to reach out, but that when all reaching stops, it is there, here, with us. Not with us. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you another story about how, while knowledge is wonderful, very useful in many ways, it could be a hurdle sometimes. Sometimes, not all. A technical knowledge you require, of course. I should learn how to repair a car or fit a tire back. I'm talking about the psychological process. In the south of India, there used to be a very learned man. There were learned men also in the north, okay? In the south of India, but it happened to be there. A person, because there are many north and south people here, whose name was Ganapati Shastri. Uh, he was also a famous poet, and there is no subject which is connected to spiritual practices and knowledge of the scriptures which he did not have. He was such a good poet that he was called Kavyakanta, which means uh, jewel among the poets. And this man, after all this, he had studied Vedanta, he had studied the Upanishads and the Vedas, he had studied the Agamas, he had studied um, yoga, Sankhya, you name it, everything in this circuit. And of course, something which people keep popping on to me. Uh, go close to suddenly, can you teach me Sri Vidya? Mhm. As if it's a joke. Anyway, so he had learned all that, which means Sri Vidya means what? He had also learned the tantras completely, fully. To study one tantra takes a lifetime. He was a genius. You sit down and try to study the Mahanirvana Tantra. I think if I start now, I'll be dead by the time I speak. He knew everything in this circuit. But he felt that the aim of moksha or freedom or enlightenment which he was seeking evaded him. It looked like everything was there, but there was a small block. He couldn't cross this block, this boundary. He was trying hard, of course, and wandering around, meeting many so called yogis. When people said there is a great yogi or a Vedantic, go, he used to go everywhere. But nothing was working. So he came wandering to Thiruvannamalai in the south. There's no Thiruvannamalai in the north, I'm sorry. And somebody told him, nobody knew who, somebody told him there is a young middle aged yogi sitting up in the hills. Since you're going everywhere, why don't you go there? Maybe he has an answer to your problem. So he said, okay. I think maybe half heartedly because he had gone the whole circuit. Anyway, he climbed up the mountain and went there. In front of a cave, he saw a person sitting. Um, he- his name then, as people said, was Venkataramana, the name he was born with. Later on, everybody called him Ramana Maharshi. Now, the word Ramana Maharshi was coined by this man, Ganapati Sachidan. Huh? Not Sachidan. Ganapati, that is another one. Ganap- mm, Ganapati Shastri. He coined the word Ramana Maharshi because he said, there is a great Maharshi sitting there. What are you guys doing here? So, anyway, so he went up and he found a simple looking man, just a loincloth sitting in front of the cave. Eyes were not closed. You cannot see a single picture of Ramana Maharshi's picture with his eyes closed. Because for him, the inside and the outside were the same. There was no going in or coming out. Find one picture. You will not find it. It's always eyes are open. So, well, you should close your eyes because otherwise you'll be disturbed by the what you see. When we were trying to find a place for a retreat in Goa. There is a place in India called Goa. And somebody took us to a place, beautiful place. But on the opposite side, there was a nudist colony. So I said, are you really going to meditate here? Especially with open eyes? Anyway, so Ramana Maharshi did not need either to open his eyes or to close his eyes. Anyway, that's a different story. So he went up and he saw this man sitting with his eyes open and looking into the far horizon. His eyes were not focused on him, but he was looking, eyes, no winking. He waited. We must give it to Ganapati Shastri. With all the knowledge that he had of the Shastras, he had the humility to wait. Anybody else would have said, "Oh, what is this?" and gone off. He waited for 1 hour. No sign of response. Still he waited. He said, "Let me see." And then finally, the eyes defocused from the horizon and fell on him. He looked at him and kind of gave a little smile. And he was waiting for this signal. And not only that, he smiled and put up his right hand and did like this, which is a gesture meaning what? What do you want? It's common in India. Kya chahiye? What do you want? And he was waiting for this signal. He started. He gave his entire biography. It must have taken 15 minutes or so. I did this, I did that. Now I have finished all this. I've done Tantra, Vedanta. So everything was blurted out. It was more like a verbal diarrhea, At the end of it, he said, "Now what am I to do? There's still a block somewhere. I don't know. What am I to do now?" Maharshi smiled and said just one sentence. But you must understand that this man was ready for this. Is what I said yesterday about Shruti. When the mind is clear, one sentence or one word that falls on its sprouts into a beautiful plant. So you must understand the man was kind of ready till then. So Maharshi smiled and said to him one sentence. In Tamil it goes like this. Konja neram summa irukka mudiyuma. Which translated would mean, can you shut up for a minute? Which means, can you stop? Enough. All is over. At the moment he heard this, he got it. I mean, it's almost like Zen or Dzogchen. He got it. He said, yes, my mind is chattering too much. It's talking too much. There's nothing to find. I have to keep quiet. Maharshi said, can you shut up for a minute? And it's gently said in Tamil, Kuncha neram summa. Sometime can you keep quiet? He came out from there and went down to the town and spread the word. There is a Maharshi sitting there. What are you guys doing here? Go. That was the problem. After that, the whole circus started. It was Ganapati Shastri who was responsible for the circus. The circuses are dangerous after once they start. If you go to Thiruvananthapuram, you will find lots of people sitting around imitating him, wearing a loincloth and saying, who am I? Who am I? Who? Do you find out who you are? We discussed Ramana Maharshi's life yesterday. It happened to him. So, this person in front of you, M, was also living quietly in full bliss in Madanapalli. Happiness, not meeting anybody. People somewhere heard there is Kriyas are not possible. And then the autobiography came out because my master had asked me to write the autobiography. I took it seriously. I should not have. And the autobiography came out. And then the circus started. Now the circus is not ending. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the clown in the circus. Going on. Perhaps somebody gets something out of it. We don't know. So, this is what I wanted to tell you. From tomorrow, it's very serious. We are starting the practice. of Kriya from morning till evening. I want to finish it because day after tomorrow we won't have time. But I couldn't have done without today's sessions to go forward. So we still have some time. So there are some questions here. Please allow me to choose them myself because some of them may be not relevant to the issue. Now, was this written by a lady or a man? So, who is Brinda? No. Because the question is very nicely put. Dear sir, earlier today you told us about Brinda, the postman. I'm also Brinda. I was worried when I started reading that you're going to say I'm the rebirth of Brinda. There are many rebirths these days. I'm also Brinda, and my question is what is the criteria of a good spiritual seeker, and how should we approach Kriya Yoga, consistency, patience, faith? What should we develop more? I think you should develop all the three. There's nothing more. How do we approach Kriya? Approach it with the understanding that it's a technique to clear your mind and open the channels which take you to the higher levels of understanding and awareness. That's all. Kriya's function ends there. Kriya is a practice, it is not the goal. Having understood that, you take the Kriya. Because you shouldn't say, because I am a Kriya Yogi, I have already. No. Have an open mind. And you don't have to think that because you have taken Kriya, which is seriously a original form of practice, that all other people who are doing other things are bad or not good. Don't have that thought in your mind. Okay? Say that, okay, this is mine, Kriya Yoga, I'm doing it, I'll do it to my best as far as I can. Remember that Patanjali himself declares, Nairantariya Abhyasena, regular practice is essential. So consistency, regular practice, essential. Patience, very much required. I'll tell you why. Among all the people sitting here, each person has come with a different background, different training, different genes, different. This you need not believe. I do believe. Different past births, carrying many influences from your many births you have come here. So, why patience? Because you shouldn't feel that somebody is going fast and I'm going slow. It's unjust or not proper. No, it's because each person will move only according to a certain pace. And if anybody says that here is the only technique in the world and that in 6 months you will attain moksha, better go somewhere else. It doesn't work that way. And enlightenment is not a mass phenomenon. It's individual. It depends on your past, what you've come with. And don't be jealous because somebody is moving faster. I'm not saying you are, it could be. And if by some chance in 2 weeks of Kriya you have touched that, don't look down upon the other guy. Because the background may be different. Okay? So patience is required. Faith. Without faith, some kind of faith, you wouldn't come for the Kriya here at all. You feel, could be there's something good enough. You know what is faith? Faith is, it's a hypothesis on which you are depending. The Pythagoras theorem in geometry is a hypothesis, right? That the square of the base and the square of the height will be equal to the square of the hypotenuse. I mean, this is a theory. As long as it remains a theory, you have to take it only on faith. It's a hypothesis. You have faith on this hypothesis. Then you work out. The Kriya is drawing that triangle with the proper instruments. When you draw the triangle, you have proved it actually. But you wouldn't have proved it actually if you did not have faith in the hypothesis. So this is where faith is essential. And don't give up easily. Oh, I tried for... Somebody came the other day. This Kriya I tried for 6 months. I said, I didn't teach you Kriya. No, somebody else taught me Kriya. Okay, great. I tried for 6 months. It doesn't work, so I took something else. I said, man, look, there are people who have been practicing Kriya for years, patiently. Even with little signs, they are happy. And then as they move forward, they progress. You saying you took some Kriya from whoever it is for 6 months and nothing is happening. So should I change? No. Persistence, therefore, as you asked, you said consistency, I would say persistence, is very important in the practice of Kriya. So welcome Vrinda to the fore. This question I am not able to understand. It is from Santosh. Santosh means happiness. Santosh. What is the significance of the West in the spiritual world? Wait 1 minute. Sit down. Why many guru 100 years before to this year focused more on the West? 100 years before I get it. Can you clarify on that? Get it. I'm coming. Come. Right now, India is going beyond the West in becoming westernized. Really? Did the great gurus talk or think about India Today is a magazine? Nobody talked about it. I mean, India Today, I understand. So, there is no such thing like West and East and North and South for the spiritual. It so happened, probably you're referring to somebody like Swami Vivekananda, who 100 years ago came to the West and started this process, after which many teachers started coming to the West. I think this is what you're talking about. Okay. Now, Swamiji had come with a purpose, Swami Vivekananda. He felt that this is a wonderful knowledge that you can share with people who do not know it. And if that doesn't mean in India everybody knew it, okay? Therefore, and he said, it can be a fair exchange because the West is rich materially and the East is rich. India is rich spiritually. So perhaps we can share this and it will be a wonderful world. And this was his idea, which is why he came. And therefore, he was right, because there were very many people who were close to him, not only in India but also in the West, who attained very good spiritual levels. And it is because of him that today the interest has been kindled. After him, Yogananda Paramahamsa came, and so many. Now, what happens when so many come? Then some may be genuine and some may not be genuine. This can happen. Right? So this has been going on. So that's why 100 years ago Swamiji came here. And you didn't get it then because you were not born at that time. You were born only now. You're right, India is becoming westernized in many ways. It is good and bad, both. When you say westernized, much of the new inventions in technology and science come from the West. There is no harm in taking them. But we should not take up the mindset that it is always right here and wrong there. You keep that away and absorb what is best. Internet, for instance, was not invented in India. And today, it's so useful. Even in spiritual matters, you can use it. So It has its advantages, it also has its disadvantages. All the time we get caught up in the internet and we begin to believe everything that the media puts out. Yes, so these are defects. So you need to choose what you want. So I won't say like a blank slate that it is bad. I would say it is good. Sometimes it is good to adopt Western systems of thought, manners, but that need not make you un Indian at all. And to welcome others, whether from other country or from another house, into your house is an ancient Indian culture. The statement in the Vedas is Atiti Devo Bhava, the guest is God. Hmm? So that's all I can say. What did you recommend for learning Sanskrit, Alexandra? Um, I think the best way to learn Sanskrit is to first learn spoken Sanskrit. Today, there you could go and check some websites. There are websites that teach you spoken Sanskrit. You can actually hear this, and it's very simple. For a person who is not speaking an Indian language, it might be a little more difficult because in the Indian languages, many languages are derived from Sanskrit, and therefore it's easy to pick up. You may find it a little more difficult if you're not from that part of the world, but it's a wonderful language to pick up. Don't give it a connotation, religious connotation, and don't give it a say this is a Hindu language. It's an ancient language, and it so many wonderful things have come out with this language. And why I say spoken Sanskrit, because if you start from the beginning with grammar, you will give up in 6 days. I can assure you, because Sanskrit grammar is even tougher than German grammar. German grammar is the worst in the West, but not worst, I mean, more difficult in the West. But Sanskrit is tougher than that, which is the reason probably why some of the earliest translators of the ancient Vedas were from Germany. Max Muller. Max Muller translated, what are the books called? Mm, Rig Veda, something he called it, the Books of the East or something, I forget. So start with spoken Sanskrit. You can certainly find something, and then as you go on in getting interest, you will find the language is very, very interesting because it's you will then begin to discover the roots of many other languages are in Sanskrit in some way. And then as you get more and more excited and as your interest sustains, then go for grammar. We have in our school spoken Sanskrit because the moment you introduce grammar, nobody will come. During my meditation, I had a feeling that I am disappearing into nothing. Feeling, okay? I got afraid that I will just disappear. What shall I do when I come to that state? First, let me tell you, it's just a feeling, so don't worry too much about it. And two, if at all it happens and you feel that everything is you are disappearing, don't get afraid and stop, but continue. You'll get a better you coming up. The old you will disappear, and the new you will be different. It will be a rejuvenated, wonderful you that will come out. So you're stopping that happening by getting frightened and stopping your meditation. Allow it to happen. You're not going to disappear. Physically, certainly not, but even the mind is not going to disappear. It will probably dissolve, but what remains after that is more wonderful than the ordinary mind. So there's nothing to fear. Hmm. It's probably the fear of the ego that I won't exist, so what happens to me? Well, you exist, but in a refined form. I am doing Kriya from 1 year now, and I'm getting some good experiences sometimes. Feels like not progressing in the path. How to come out of this thought? Keep practicing. It's only 1 year, right? Keep practicing. Don't give up so easily. One day you will come there. Hmm? One of the things you're saying that I am not progressing in this path, one of the signs of progress is that you sit down and next minute you are in deep meditation. This is the first sign. Till that happens, one needs to labor a bit, work hard. This question is not relevant to the topic here. It's important, but we need to look at it in a different venue, which is please explain the significance of Vishnu Sahasranama, its benefits and effects, if any. Now, to those who don't know what it means, Vishnu Sahasranama means the 1,000 names of Vishnu, who is considered to be a manifestation of the Supreme Being, some form. He's asking, who are asking this, its benefits and effects. I would only say that it's a good thing to chant Vishnu Sahasranama if you know it. Which doesn't mean that those who do not chant the Vishnu Sahasranama are bad people. It doesn't mean that way. But it is indeed wonderful if you chant it. It has very good effects and take you to the spiritual um, levels. And what happened? Big. Who gave it? Oh, paper is big. The question from my wife. She heard about Garuda Purana. She wanted to react, read that. Internet says this book usually read during death ceremonies. So question is, can she read this? She's still alive, no? Why should she read the Garuda? Hmm? First of all, the Garuda Purana is written in Sanskrit. So most people don't know Sanskrit. So it is harmless to read the Garuda Purana because you don't understand a word. But if you are reading a translation of the Garuda Purana, then there is no harm in reading it. But it is usually read out when people are leaving their bodies so that they go out without fear. It talks about how you're transformed to another realm. It also keeps you doing good things because it says if you do bad things, you'll be punished and so on and so forth, which is there in all world religions for that matter. So this is the Garuda Purana. No harm in reading. It might keep you from doing bad things. It may alert you when you're about to die and so on. So usually it is read by somebody else because the person who is dying is in no way fit to read anything, right? Somebody reads so that you listen. It's like the bardo. The soul is about to leave the body, then somebody says things like, now you're leaving one house and going to another. Relax, there is no harm, there are beings who will, and so on. So you go peacefully out of the body. And this is the idea. Mhm. People think that when I'm about to die, I will somehow become very peaceful and tranquil and die in peace so that my soul is happy and so on. It's not possible. You will think exactly of the things you are doing and thinking when you are alive. You cannot change it suddenly. So it's better to practice being good so that even when you're dying, good thoughts occur to you. And you go out with a good uh, into the good field of thought. I do not think I can answer this question. Is it possible to know how far one is from reaching the ultimate? If yes, how? I don't know. I don't know how. Keep keep trying to reach. I mean, don't speculate. When am I going to reach? We heard today shad means churning. We assume one way, and this happens when dialogues with the guru. What do we do when access to the guru is not possible? Let me tell you, shad churning has nothing to do with anybody sitting with you and having a dialogue. Churning is when you read certain scriptures, when you read certain spiritual texts, the churning starts already. You don't need someone sitting in front of you to start you to churn. The churning happens by itself when you begin, like in the morning we read the Upanishad and I explained what is churning. Hmm? So, do for the churning, for understanding this, do I need to be intimate and sit on your lap? You heard, right? I'm sitting far away. So it's not that. It's more meeting the minds, meeting of minds. It's not that much as physical contact as meeting of minds. I'll tell you why. There was a great mm, sage called Nityananda. Please, not the guy who sits in an island somewhere. Uh, I'm not talking about clowns. I'm talking about. There was a great being, a great sage called Nityananda, who used to live in uh, Vajreshwari, Nityananda Avaduta. Um, I'm saying about this being close physically. So, with him, very close to him, even sleeping with him all the time, most of the time, near him, was a flower seller called Prabhu. Some people got spiritual enlightenment through Nityananda. Prabhu was regularly with him, sleeping next to him, looking after his needs. But Prabhu died not as a yogi, but as a flower seller. So, staying physically close does not guarantee much. In fact, some yogis may be so powerful that staying close might put your life upside down. This is also possible. Till you say, I must run away from here. That is also there, to the other side. So, and if a great sage wants you to be physically close to you, he or she will decide, not you. So to say that this is unkind, some people are all, and some people may be looking after you, but that doesn't mean they have reached a high spiritual level. Like the flower seller who remained a flower seller. He did nothing about the Atman, he didn't know. Maybe in his next birth he may. This is a genuine question. Can my wife also practice Kriya Yoga with me, even if she is not initiated? No, because you may not be qualified enough to initiate her. And if you do something wrong, which she learns, then the karma of her doing wrong Kriya falls on your head. So it's better not. So if she is really interested in Kriya, then she can meet someone who teaches Kriya. You don't start teaching her. But there is a simple Kriya which is called the Hamsa, which you can teach. Why I say you can teach is because I have already put it on internet. So Anybody can access it, so there's no reason why you shouldn't sit down and talk to her about it. This is called a Hamsa, and it is by itself a very potent exercise, and we consider it as part of Kriya. And it's available on the internet free. You don't do anything. Okay? So now we need to wind up. We will meditate. I don't think we will do the dhuni because I feel that when you light the dhuni, the rain will come again. If you don't light, it won't come. Seriously. So trust my understanding. So we can now sit down and meditate for half an hour. Chant Om 3 times together. And then just sit quietly and meditate in whatever way you want. And when I think it's time for you to open your eyes, I'll clap and say Hari Om Tat Sat. So that you don't have to wonder when am I going to wake up. Be free. I take care of that.